Have you ever walked out to check on your canvas plants super proud of how they're doing, only to find these weird, mysterious holes in the leaves? Or even worse, you see a beautiful, perfect bud that's just suddenly wilting. It is so frustrating. Well, the culprit is often a super destructive and kinda sneaky little foe, the caterpillar. So let's get into it and figure out how to handle these guys. So here's our game plan. First, we're going to identify the two main types of threats you're facing. Then, we'll run through a rogues gallery of the specific pests to look out for. After that, we'll dive into the organic playbook for how to actually stop them. And we'll wrap up with how to fortify your garden so you're ready for anything. You know, the first rule of any good defense is you have to know your enemy. And when it comes to these worms that are munching on your cannabis, they are not all created equal. They actually fall into two really distinct groups based on how they attack. And understanding that difference, well, that's the key to everything. So let's just ask the big question right up front. The damage you're seeing, is it on the outside of the plant, or does it look like something is going wrong on the inside? Because that answer tells you exactly what kind of pest you're up against. And this breaks it down perfectly. On one side, you've got your leaf and bud feeders. These are the obvious ones, right? They're chewing holes in the leaves and leaving behind their little droppings, what's called frass, sometimes right on your buds. But then you've got the much sneakier stem borers. These guys tunnel inside the plant, causing whole branches to just wilt and die from the inside out, often with almost no warning. All right, let's meet our first group of troublemakers. We're going to start with the more obvious pests, the leaf and bud feeders. But don't let the fact that you can see them fool you. These guys can absolutely wreck a harvest if you're not careful. First on our list is a pretty famous villain, the corn earworm. This pest is all over North America, and it is a total nightmare for flowering cannabis. Why? Because it tunnels directly into your most valuable asset, the buds themselves. So how do you spot them? You'll see buds with these little burrowed holes, maybe some broken stems, and that classic sign of frass. It looks like little dark droppings. That damage is a gateway for devastating bud rot. Now, the key to controlling them is all about timing. You want to spray with an organic biological insecticide like beet, that's Bacillus thuringiensis, while the caterpillars are still young and feeding on the leaves. You have to get them before they burrow into the buds, because once they're in there, they're protected. Next up, we have the armyworms. And yeah, their name is pretty fitting. They can move across your plants like a little army, just stripping leaves with some serious speed. Armyworms leave behind these big, irregular holes and can literally strip a plant of its leaves. Some of them even act like cutworms, which means they'll chew through the stems of young plants right at the soil line, killing them completely. Your best organic options here are sprays like BT or spinosad when they're small, and just good old-fashioned crop sanitation to keep their numbers down in the first place. And the last pest in this category, the loopers. You can spot these little green guys pretty easily by the way they move. They arch their backs into a loop, kind of like an inchworm. It's actually pretty distinct. Loopers are the ones responsible for those big, ragged holes you might see in your fan leaves. They can really skeletonize the foliage, but the good news is they usually stay away from the buds. And even better news, BT sprays are super effective against young loopers, which honestly makes them one of the easier pests on this list to manage organically. Okay, let's talk about the stealth operators. We're shifting gears to the hidden destroyers, the stem borers. The damage they do is all internal, which makes them way harder to spot until it's almost too late. And a prime example of this is the Eurasian hemp borer. This tiny caterpillar is one of the most specialized and destructive pests out there, tunneling right into the stems and the buds. So what you have to look for are the symptoms. Keep an eye out for stems that look swollen or maybe even split open, sometimes with a little frass oozing out. This internal damage cuts off all the water and nutrients, and the parts of the plant above that entry hole just wilt and die. Control here is all about prevention. After harvest, you absolutely have to destroy all the old stalks and debris to kill the larvae that are trying to survive the winter. And if you have to spray BT, it has to be timed perfectly to hit the larvae just after they hatch, before they get a chance to tunnel inside. Another major internal threat is the European corn borer. This one's been around in the US for a long time and was a huge problem for old-school hemp crops way back in the day. Just like its cousin, this borer tunnels into stems, causing dead growing tips and completely hollowed out stalks. The strategies to fight it are pretty much the same. Getting rid of all the crop residue after harvest is non-negotiable. And encouraging natural predators, like certain parasitic wasps, can make a really big difference in keeping their population under control. All right, we've identified the bad guys. Now for the fun part, the solution. It's time to put together our organic control playbook. This is our unified, integrated strategy to defend the garden. Our entire defense strategy really rests on four main pillars. We've got biological control, which is basically using nature's own army. Then we have microbial and botanical sprays. Those are our direct organic weapons. Next up, our cultural controls, which are your foundational best practices. And finally, we'll talk about physical barriers and companion planting to really fortify your space. First up, biological control. This is basically fighting fire with fire. Instead of just trying to kill the pest yourself, you create a garden that invites their natural enemies to come in and do the work for you. Think of ladybugs and lacewings as your ground troops, munching on eggs and small caterpillars. And then you have tiny parasitic wasps like trichogramma that are like your air support. They lay their own eggs inside the pest eggs. It's pretty cool. Next, let's talk about our direct action sprays. BT is an absolute rock star here, but you have to use it the right way. First, you've got to scout your plants and find the caterpillars when they're young and vulnerable. Second, you have to get total coverage when you spray. The caterpillar has to actually eat the BT for it to work. And third, you've got to reapply it every week or so because sunlight breaks it down pretty quickly. Now, this right here, this is the foundation of your entire defense system. Cultural controls. This isn't about fancy sprays. It's just about smart gardening habits. Destroying old stalks after harvest gets rid of overwintering pests. Removing weeds nearby takes away their other homes. Rotating your crops prevents pests from building up in the same spot year after year. Seriously, this is your first and most powerful line of defense. Okay, let's bring this all home. We've talked about identifying pests and reacting to them. Now let's talk about how to build a garden that is naturally resilient and fortified against attacks in the first place. One of the best ways to do this is with companion planting. It's so smart. You can plant aromatic herbs like dill, cilantro, and basil because their smells actually repel the adult moths that are looking for a place to lay their eggs. You can plant things like marigolds to attract all those good predatory insects we talked about, or you can get really clever and plant what's called a trap crop, like nasturtiums, to lure the caterpillars away from your precious cannabis. So, as you head back out to your garden with all this new knowledge, the real question is, which defense are you going to build first? Are you going to start with a really rigorous sanitation plan? Are you going to bring in a crew of beneficial insects? Or maybe plant a beautiful and protective companion garden? The power is totally in your hands now. If this guide helped you put your battle plan together, please like and subscribe. It really helps more than you know.